Hi there, this is Tyler, and I am here at GauntletCon 19 with some fantastic people playing a game that I wrote for Codex Fire. It's called Fire Ships at Midnight. And this is a game that, when you hear the pitch, might be might be hard for you to think, wow, that's a game. Because we're playing a game about the Spanish Armada and its defeat by the British, but we're not playing the battle. No, that would be too exciting. We're playing the trip home. And what's important in this game is how do our three pillars, the three central figures of this legendary disaster, get home with their reputations intact? And how does Spain receive them? So I'm going to have go around and have everyone introduce themselves. Your names, your pronouns, maybe a little something you'd like to say about yourself. And I'm just going to go clockwise around from me on our screen. Greg, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Greg, he, him pronouns. Super excited to be playing this, as I was scheduled to win at one point and it got canceled. So I'm excited to get back in there and play Tyler's lovely game.
Awesome. Thank you. Kat?
Hi, I'm Kat Rauman, she, her, and I feel like I'm doing my little tour of small codex games that have midnight in the title because I'm playing Midnight at the Oasis tomorrow.
Oof, which is a lovely game. A lovely game.
It will be my first time playing it.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, Kat wrote an amazing game. I've played it. It is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Philip, introduce yourself, please.
Sure. I'm Philip Rogers, he, him. I've role-play a lot at conventions and in person. Just recently gotten started with the Gauntlet, though, in the past week or so. I no longer feel like I'm new since this is about game 10. So I'm getting my feet under me at this point.
Fantastic, and welcome aboard.
Thank you.
So what we're going to do is we're going to be reading the Fire Ships at Midnight intro, a little bit about it. And it's a short game, 7 pages total. And hopefully it'll explain itself. So I'm going to start off, and then everybody's going to get to take a chance to read a little piece of it. For those of you at home, this is from, like I say, the Gauntlet Codex Fire. You can find Gauntlet at gauntlet-rpg.com. Codex comes out about every month. Wonderful independent gaming, chance for a lot of different folks with a lot of different backgrounds and a lot of different ideas of what gaming is, putting stuff in it. You should go take a look. All right. So if folks will take a look at the page, I'm going to start reading Fire Ships at Midnight. In late May of 1588, King Philip II of Spain dispatched the Grande y Felicissima Armada, known as the Spanish Armada, to invade England under the command of the Duke of Medina Sidonia. Manned by Spain's best sailors, prepared to transport a massive army, and carrying priests of the Inquisition, the Armada intended to bring England back into the Catholic fold. At midnight on the 28th of July, as they close anchored for the night, an English fireship attack ended all their hopes. What happened after became a legendary disaster. In Fire Ships at Midnight, the players take on the roles of the Duke of Medina Sidonia, Cardinal Ribera, and Captain Salazar, referred to collectively as the Pillars. They must endure the horrors of the journey, but most importantly, they must save their own reputations when they return to Spain. The game is played over 3 turns, referred to as conflicts, each with 4 phases. Each character will have a pool of 6-sided dice, which they will use to bid and roll for authority in each conflict. A result of 1 to 3 on the die is a failure, while a 4 to 6 is a success. Successes are totaled with failures subtracted and compared to the conflict resolution chart, the CRC. Once all conflicts are resolved, we discover the reception our characters receive back home in Spain. While all the actions in Fire Ship at Midnight take place on the ocean, it is how they are received in Spain that is most important to the Pillars. Using various machinations to overcome or endure the conflicts and eliminate their rivals will leave one pillar with narrative control once the Armada returns to Spain. In the end, any price is worth paying to save their reputations. Players should take turns reading aloud each section up to the conflicts. Conflicts will be read during play. Once all conflicts have been faced, move on to the return to Spain. Greg, would you be so kind as to read the characters?
I will do my best. I have a slight cough, so bear with me. The characters. The Duke of Medina Sidonia. Starting pool of 8 dice. The Duke was appointed Admiral of the Spanish Armada, despite having no real qualifications. He was, however, a skilled courtier, brave fighter, and a loyal servant of the crown. His efforts probably made a doomed invasion less of a disaster than it otherwise would have been. The Duke may re-roll any 1 die on each CRC where he is the active pillar. The Cardinal Ribera. Starting pool also of 6 dice. Not also, 6 dice. The Cardinal is a composite of many priests and inquisitors who sailed with the Armada. They were fanatical in their devotion to the church and their king. The Inquisition's arrogance and zealous certainty of its righteousness elevated the invasion to a holy war. Once the Spanish army landed, the English heretics would be tried and burned at the stake. The Cardinal may change 2 dice to any result on the CRC roll once per game. Captain Salazar, starting pool 6 dice. The captain is a composite of several very capable naval commanders who were hamstrung by politics and forced to accept an inexperienced noble as admiral. Spanish captains were the most experienced sailors on the high seas, often commanding the same ship for many years. The captain may take all failed dice rolled on a CRC into his pool once per game.
Thank you. Kat, would you read the 4 phases, please?
Absolutely. So the 4 phases of conflict. Part 1, Introduction. The captain reads aloud the conflict and the 4 plans to deal with it. Then they describe the state of the fleet at that moment. Be as inventive and descriptive as you like. Part 2, Negotiations. The Duke describes the location where the pillars are meeting and directs the conversation as the pillars discuss how to deal with the conflict. The pillars may beg, threaten, bargain, or simply cooperate. However, no agreement is binding when your reputation is on the line. Part 3, Bidding. The players secretly bid dice from their pool to become the active pillar with authority to deal with the conflict. The bids will also be the dice they roll with on the CRC. Highest bid wins and picks a plan, with ties broken in favor of the Duke and then the Cardinal. Players who lose the bid may give one of their bid dice to the winner for the CRC roll, but all others are lost. Each character must bid a minimum of 1. And Phase 4, the Resolution. The Cardinal describes how the prayer blessing they bestow on the fleet, and the active pillar rolls the dice from the winning pool plus any given by the losers, and compares it to the CRC. Failures are subtracted from successes. Once the indicated pillar describes the aftermath of the roll, the Armada moves on to the next conflict. Any uses of pillar's special power are done in the same order as breaking ties. So the Duke, then the Cardinal, then the Captain. Players should note if the conflict was heroically overcome or merely endured. Successfully overcoming conflicts is all that matters when we return to Spain.
Return to Spain. Once the fleet returns to Spain, the pillars are to tally whether each conflict was overcome or endured, and how many pillars still have dice in their pools. In many ways, this is the true thrust of the game. For some pillars, overcoming conflicts is not the best way to secure their reputation. The final scene is described based on the following. No conflicts overcome, and no pillars. The Cardinal describes how the Church views him as a martyr, and the other pillars as sinners and fools. No conflicts overcome, and 1 or more pillars. The Captain describes how the public blames the Crown and the Church for Spanish humiliation. 1 conflict overcome, and 1 or fewer pillars. Remaining pillar, or the Duke if none, describes how he lays the blame for the failures at the feet of the other pillars. 1 conflict overcome, and 2 or more pillars. The Cardinal describes how the Crown protects itself from blame and punishes the returning pillars. 2 conflicts overcome, and 1 or fewer pillars. Remaining pillar, or the Captain if none, describes how the pillars are made heroes of the moment, and also how history remembers them poorly. 2 conflicts overcome, and 2 or more pillars. The Captain describes how the Crown turns this into a victory, and how the Crown shows the pillars are heroes. 3 conflicts overcome, and 1 or fewer pillars. Remaining pillar or cardinal if none, describes how the public views him as the hero of the day and the other pillars as dead weight. 3 conflicts overcome, and 2 or more pillars. The Duke describes how all the pillars are greeted as heroes and how the crown rewards him. Once the Return to Spain description is finished, each player should read aloud their characters afterward.
Thank you. And I will read the conflict resolution chart. So, when we roll our dice, if we have 4 or more successes, the active pillar will either add 1 die to their pool or take 1 die from each other pillar into their pool. They then describe how the fleet overcomes the conflict. 3 successes, the active pillar adds 1 die to their pool and describe how the fleet overcomes the conflict. 2 successes, the active pillar either loses 1 die from their pool and describes how the fleet overcomes the conflict, or adds 1 die to their pool and asks another pillar to describe how the fleet endures the conflict. 1 success, active pillar either asks another pillar to describe how the fleet endures the conflict, or all pillars lose 1 die from their pool and the active pillar describes how the fleet overcomes the conflict. And no successes, a pillar loses 1 die and the active pillar describes the horrors required to endure the conflict. If a pillar has 0 dice at the end of any phase, they are disgraced, killed, or imprisoned. They will describe why and how they are removed as a pillar and will utter their curse or blessing to the remaining pillars. Once removed as a pillar, a player may demand a reroll of 1 die for each CRC roll to reflect their curse or blessing. However, they are no longer part of the bidding phase. They may participate in the other phases as a proxy, a successor, or in disgrace. All right. Are there any questions kind of where we are here? Think we sort of understand? Okay. So we're going to start by picking who we want to be. I went around from Greg before, so I'll start with you this time, Philip, I suppose. Is there something, one of the pillars that's calling from you?
Well, I think that perhaps Captain Salazar, because, I didn't do anything wrong, and clearly the Duke's at fault. And the Cardinal, well, he just has to make his peace with God.
Kat, either of the other 2 calling to you?
Well, since Greg is wearing the hat, I think I should be the Cardinal, and he can be the Duke.
Excellent.
I am good with being the Duke.
All right, then. So we're going to hop right on into play. So to reiterate, Captain, you're going to read the conflict and the choices that are going to be open to the pillars, and then you're going to describe the state of the fleet.
Okay. So I start with the fire ship at midnight. So I just do the first one, right?
Correct.
Fire ships at midnight. The perfidious English have lit their own ships on fire, filled them with pitch, and are sailing them towards the bulk of the fleet at anchor. In a panic, the majority of captains have cut anchor and are scattering. The current and the wind are pushing the fleet north out of the English Channel. How will the pillars attempt to keep the fleet from falling into complete disarray? Plans. Signal to the fleet to tack into the wind and reform to the north. +2 successes for captain on the CRC if active. Trust in the Almighty to bring his flock to safety. +2 successes for the Cardinal on the CRC if active. Send small ships out to cover the retreat and protect the fleet. -1 success. Signal for all capital ships to converge on the flagship and leave the others to their fate. +1 success for the Duke on the CRC if active. The fleet right now, you have hundreds of officers and thousands of sailors falling back on their decades of training. If it was any other fleet on the seas, they would be worse off than the Spanish fleet is right now. They're throwing up prayers with their deep Catholic faith to God above, and they're waiting for their officers above them to give them direction, and they trust that they will pull them out of this situation.
Excellent. And since this is our first conflict, I'm just going to kind of hit that where it says the 2 successes or the -1 success or the 1 success. Those are automatic success. Those aren't extra die. They're automatic successes. All right. My Lord Duke, you will be calling this meeting. So why don't you tell us where we're meeting?
This would be in the nautical ship terms. Oh man. You know what? Cat's in this. The big boxy place in the back of the boat where the admiral would be.
The Great Cabin.
The Great Cabin. Is the Great Cabin, and there is a panoramic view out of these lead glass windows of these fire ships all coming towards the fleet. And the Duke, in a panic, has roused Captain Salazar from his bed, who had just gone to bed, has pulled the Cardinal from the chapel to entreat whatever wisdom God may give. For the damned, cursed heretic English have set their own boats on fire. And I will begin the meeting with, Look! Look! The fleet is in disarray. Surely the only course of action is to rally all of our ships to this flagship. We must retreat.
The perfidious English have adopted a tool of Satan for their own. You must trust in God, who has favored our most Catholic and majesties in Spain with his favor.
What say you, Captain Salazar?
You're muted, my dear.
What say you, Captain Salazar? Went through my muted.
At moments like this, you have a lot more bravery than I do to abandon all of those souls to the sea. Do you really want to abandon that many people right now, when we can still turn around and potentially have a victory for Spain?
You see this as a winnable position?
I see this as not a conflict that is resolved in simply a day, but this is a war that we've fought over decades. I think the more sailors we put on the sea the next time we tackle the English, the more likely we are to overcome them. But if you want to leave them to the sea, I trust that that is what you would want to do. And I think the Cardinal would be praying long into the night for all of those souls to be going to heaven.
Damn.
I think that we have the possibility of tacking into the wind and salvaging something and relying on the nautical abilities of the Spanish fleet. But you, my grace, are in charge. So I will leave it to you to make that decision.
There's no time to sign such affidavits to say that it was your idea.
I simply execute.
I urge you to pray to God for his wisdom. It is our faith that is being tested.
I think that moments like this, we have to rely on a lifetime of prayer and simply act.
All right. I say we signal to the fleet. We tack into the wind.
As you wish, my grace. I will make sure those orders are executed.
Does that sound we're ending our conference, or does anyone have anything else they'd like to say? No? All right. So now we're going to move on to the bidding phase. So the easiest way I found to do that is in chat to just put your number of dice you wish to bid, and then we'll 1, 2, 3, and we'll hit enter. Keeping in mind, it's going to be fairly hard to get dice back, though there are some who are a little more adept at that than others, the captain. But it also keep in mind a little of that breakdown of ties. And let's see. And the winning will get all of their die. I'll then ask who would like to contribute a die. and that's the bidding process. So feel free to put in your bids, and if we're all ready,
I have one question.
Yeah.
Who's the active pillar?
whoever wins the bid.
Okay.
So whoever wins the bid becomes the active pillar. All right. So if everybody has a bid in, 1, 2, 3. Ooh,
Wow.
Captain. My gracious. All right. So, Captain.
I
No,
bid
no,
four.
he bid
The
4.
Duke.
Oh, I'm sorry, the Duke. Oops.
Mhm.
I apologize, my Lord Duke. Not trusting that the captain will do your bidding there, huh? All right. So that means that you are now the active. You're going to be the active pillar. But before we go to that, we have the resolution. So, Cardinal, would you describe the prayer or blessing that you bestow upon the fleet?
The cardinal, who makes everybody wait while he gets his assistants to dress him in the full regalia of a cardinal of Spain, stands on the deck of the ship, looking down from the quarterdeck, looks down at all the sailors, and issues a long and ornate prayer in Latin, of course, that the wind shall change its point and come from the south, and that the fleet shall be spared this iniquity and return to smite the infidel and the heretic once again.
You're muted, my dear.
I sure am. I'll have to drink one for that. So, Cardinal, do you choose to give your bid die to the Duke to add to their pool?
I do.
All right. Captain, do you give one of your bid die?
I do.
You do. All right. The other two, Captain, will leave now, so you should pull them from your pool. And Duke, you have your 4, plus 1 from the Cardinal, plus 1 from the Captain. And you're wanting to roll high, subtracting your lows.
So I'm now rolling 6 dice.
Yeah, so
I keep all my dice.
well, you pull 4 out of your pool and
Okay.
1 from each of the other 2.
Looks like they deleted theirs.
We did.
That's all good. I will
Okay.
add 2d6. They're just going to be orange.
And Captain, you've lost 2 more because you lose your full bid.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Ooh.
I'm so sorry.
And obviously, although I was, entreating the captain and entertaining his notions, as soon as we leave that office, I immediately am running to the signalman and interrupting the signal to tack into the wind and gathering them to what was the real option? The only true option where the Duke gets an extra success is to signal all of the capital ships to converge. So signaling to the fleet to attack has now changed into signaling the ships to converge on the flagship. God rest their souls.
All right. Yeah, I should say so. And you get, because you are the active pillar, you may re-roll any 1 die once you make your roll. So rolling those 6 die, let's see how you do.
That's 2 successes plus a 3rd for the plan, and then we subtract all 1 through 3s, right?
Yes.
Oh, that didn't go so great.
Okay, well,
That didn't go so great at all.
First off, you get a choice. Do you wish to re-roll 1?
God, I don't even know if that would make a difference.
It would.
Yeah.
It would switch it to 1. You potentially could get 1 success, net 1 success if you rolled a success.
Yes.
And you couldn't get any worse.
That's true. I'm going to re-roll this lucky number 1.
Okay.
There we go.
There you
1
go.
success.
All right. So now you're on a positive 1. And we look to the Cardinal. Cardinal, you have a power, but I don't know if this is the moment you choose to use it.
No. God has clearly seen that the Duke is worthy of his grace.
All right, and then we look to you there, Captain. Do you wish to use your power at this time?
And mine is...
You could take all 3 of those failures back into your pool.
I would like to do that.
All right.
So I'll just drag them over here.
Okay. All right. So on our conflict resolution chart, we have had 1 success. The active pillar, which is the Duke, either asks another pillar to describe how the fleet endures the conflict, meaning that we don't succeed here very well, or all pillars lose 1 die from their pool, and the active pillar gets to describe how we overcome the conflict. So there is a positive result from this. What are you choosing there, Your Lordship?
That's a tricky one. Let me look at... really, the only way the Duke comes out of this clean is if we have 3 conflicts overcome. So I don't get any of these dice back, right?
If you roll well enough, there is retrieving dice for high successes, gaining them from other players from high successes.
But on this roll, I'm not getting these 3 dice back.
Oh, no.
No. Okay. I am going to make us all lose 1 die.
All right. So subtract a die from everyone's pool. And Your Lordship, describe how this goes as well as it could go. This is overcome.
So I get to the signalman before the captain's orders and describe how I am a Duke, and you will get me out of this mess. And the flags go up, and all of the ships begin to tack back. At which point, I make eye contact across the deck at the captain, who sees the flags. And I'll let you, Philip, say what the captain does to that.
The captain nods. He's a man of the sea that knows his place. Surely he is a king on his own deck, but even kings on his deck are overruled when the real king puts somebody over him. He watches, and a single tear runs down his face as all of the people that he has known for many, many years drown, and there's nothing he can do but order the fleet to go back and head back towards Spain,
and
knowing
the Duke,
in his heart that the Duke has damned them right here to
the
die.
Duke watches. The Duke watches from the forecastle. Would that be right, Kat? The very front
Yep.
of the ship? Yes. Watches from the forecastle, looking backwards as these fire ships explode and take out portions of the fleet. Their sails in flames as the ships list to their sides and wind into the water. And he grabs one of the seamen who's near him and goes, "It could have been so much worse. The captain was going to push you all into that. He was going to run you all into those fire ships and tack you into the wind, running you right into the English trap. Surely you see the wisdom here. This is a tactical retreat."
Very good. And I have placed a token for overcoming this conflict on your sheet there, on the roll for your party. Captain, it is time for the second conflict.
Let's see. Rough water and storms. Having been pushed into the North Sea, the Armada must deal with the horrors of weather in September during the Little Ice Age. As storms rage, much of the fleet is forced into the rocky shores of Scotland and Northern Ireland. The cold numbs sailors and makes the ships hard to handle, while tornadoes and rogue waves capsize the unwary. How will the Pillars navigate around the British Isles, hold the fleet together, and eventually turn south toward home? Plans. Consolidate all personnel into the most seaworthy ships and scuttle the rest. +2 successes for the captain if active. Order all ships and bend every sail. Leave those who fall behind. +1 success for the Duke if active. Stay in loose formation and continue to weather the elements as best you can. -1 success. Keep close formation and share resources as best you can. +2 successes for the Cardinal if active.
And describe what the fleet state is now.
A fleet of experienced sailors and godly men have just had their hearts broken a little bit. The fleets themselves are bad. The ships themselves are battered, but the Spanish hearts are being corralled by their commanding officers, some of the best on the waters, and they're sitting there waiting. They're still willing to follow orders, but things are very, very rough right now.
Excellent. My Lord Duke, where do you summon your officers this time?
This time it's a deck on one of the smaller ships.
Which is good because where we met last time is now a surgery with all people that were dying from your previous decision.
I think that's accurate, and I have moved the headquarters of the Duke over to this smaller, faster frigate, and it's not at all because the other one has become a hospital ship full of the burning and the damned, and I think you guys arrive on small like transfer dinghies that you have to sort of find a calm in the storm to get to me, and unlike all of the other ships who are full of the sick or full of those who are lacking food, my ship is actually very well fed, and all of the sailors are in the finest dress uniforms as they go about, and I appear to be completely oblivious to the troubles of the rest of the fleet. This weather. Surely, Captain, we can find some better weather further south from here.
We can definitely find better weather, but the winds drive us in a certain direction, so we're captive to that wind. So we have to make the decision right now about what we're going to do with the fleet. Are we going to keep it together? Are we going to abandon some? The weather itself, well, that's just what we have to deal with. But we have to figure out what we can do to make sure that the fleet is protected as best we can against that weather.
When the Apostle Paul summoned the Christian community to him in Galilee, they all shared equally among themselves. And may I remind your grace of the parable of Dives and Lazarus. It would be unfortunate if you were to enjoy the fruits of pleasure on earth and yet one day beg the poorest man in all of heaven for one drop of water. We must unite the fleet and share our resources. My Lord Duke.
Oh, but if we sail further south, if we go full sail, could we not avoid these hardships altogether?
No.
Your insubordinate, Captain, will be noted in my record.
What insubordination? You asked me a question, and I responded, my grace. Now, right now, if we continue to operate, we are going to rely on the seaworthiness of the least seaworthy amongst us. What we have to do is we have to determine what gives us the best opportunity to succeed and return the most resource to our home. And I think right now, just like you did, we need to find out what are the most seaworthy amongst us and consolidate all of our personnel onto those most seaworthy ships, we need to take your lead, my grace, and do exactly what it is that you have done.
And you admonished me so lately
I've
for
simply,
sacrificing my ships.
I've simply complimented you on this decision. The other decisions already happened. I'm a practical man. My job is to make sure that we take your orders and execute them as best this fleet can.
And you would have us sink whatever hardtack we have on these less seaworthy vessels? Well, the Cardinal would have us share such hardtack.
I think as we consolidate, we're going to bring that hardtack with us. Even the most weevily of hardtack will be consolidated upon our ships.
I fear he's been taken by the scurvy.
The suffering we endure, Your Grace, is merely an expression of the penance that we obviously owe our Lord and Savior, for clearly he has turned his favor against us. I cannot understand why, unless it is some fault, not with our most holy and Catholic Majesty in Spain. Surely not. Perhaps he was tempted to put a man of weak faith in a position of power. It would be unfortunate if that were to prove to be the case. It would be most unfortunate if questions were asked, or perhaps the question was put, is the better way to say it.
So, my grace, what should we do?
Shall break bread as Paul did with the apostle, whatever the Cardinal desires.
Oh, and does that end our meeting? Captain, what do you do? How do you react to that?
What I do is I interpret that since it was a very unclear instruction, I interpret it in the way that suits me.
Cardinal, you've heard this perhaps grudging repentance from the Lord Duke. How do you respond?
I think I keep quiet and watch, because you don't go through 2 papal elections if you don't know how to get that dagger ready when you need to.
Excellent. All right then. I think we're going to bids. Somewhat reduced pools now, but not in horrible shape. The Duke not looking grand. So keep in mind, must bid 1, and when we're ready, 1, ready, 2, 3. Captain. All right. I'll ask first, Cardinal. Do you give one of your die to the captain?
Nope.
Very good. Your Grace, do you give one to the captain? Especially considering what probably is going to happen here.
Yes, I'll give one to the captain.
All right. So, Captain, pull your 3, and 1 from the Duke, and Cardinal, your 2 will slide to the side. All right. Cardinal, what do we see as well, first I'll ask, just so we have this for knowledge of what's going on, what choice are you making there, Captain, for plans, so the Cardinal can know what to bless when this happens?
What I'm doing is I'm making sure all of the resources are shared amongst all of the ships that we are going to keep, the most seaworthy of ones.
All right. So, Cardinal, what do we see from you as this begins to transpire?
There was a certain man who received the message from God to go and preach. But being a disobedient man, he turned his back on him and tried to flee across the wide waves. But God, in his great wisdom, cursed the ship he was on, so that they were troubled with storms and threatened with sinking. And it was only when Jonah gave himself up to God's wisdom and threw himself with faith into the water that the ship was spared. Should all remember that Jonah's lack of faith almost destroyed every person on that ship. In nomine Patri, Filii, et Spiritus Sancti. Amen.
Oh. Captain, you can roll your die. All right.
So that is two successes and 2 failures.
Plus, you chose your particular 2 successes, correct?
Yes.
All right. So you're +2 at the moment. Cardinal, do you wish to, as the Duke does not have the chance to use his special ability, Cardinal, do you wish to use yours?
Huh. Interesting. Hang on a second. This is somewhat complicated, and I'm driving for one particular result.
Mm-hmm. It does get, as we you go ahead, think on this, but it does get to where you start looking and piecing down as we get here. The what's going to be good?
Interesting. Let me look at the pools. This is a little marvelous engine you've built here, Tyler.
Thank you.
So if we do that, so okay. Damage that people have. Interesting. Cool. So if people lose a die here, then they're going to be zeroed out by the time we get to Spain.
Provided there's not an amazingly good roll somewhere in there.
We would all be zeroed out.
Okay. So you're 2 successes right now. Yeah, I'm gonna let that stick then.
All right. So 2 successes on our chart means that active pillar either loses 1 die from their pool and describes how the fleet overcomes the conflict, or adds 1 to their pool and asks another pillar to describe how it is endured.
Cardinal, please describe how we've endured.
A great storm comes up, and the fleet is scattered and tossed for days, during which at least one ship quite superstitiously sees a pod of whales going by and it just loses their mind about it. But in the end, although many of our less seaworthy ships were sunk, even after the fleet consolidation, we endure and finally put Ireland behind us and turn towards Spain. Quite close. We just got to cross either the Bay of Biscay or the North Atlantic in fall. It's fine. We're gonna be fine. I trust in the captain.
Excellent.
It's very rarely are there hurricanes off that coast.
Yeah.
Except this year.
A few tornadoes here and there, though. But that does not give us a token, meaning we have endured one and overcome one. Oh, the Duke, poor Duke. All right. And so we reach the well. Let's actually take a quick bio break, and we'll come back at the top of the hour, and we'll head into our final conflict. All right.
All right.
See y'all shortly.
That's it. Hey, Kat. I played Red Carnations on a Black Grave at Big Bad Con. Had a lot of fun.
The game Shane ran?
Yeah. Yep.
Good. Thank you so much.
It was a fantastic game. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. If I had known I was going to play the Cardinal, I would have gotten my red beret.
It is a beautiful game, that Red Carnations. Oof.
Aw, you're very sweet.
All right. Well, we have reached kind of the darkest hour. Now let us see if we have a new dawn. Captain, will you read our final conflict?
Plague and sickness on the journey south. After so long at sea, sickness begins to take its toll on the men of the fleet. As sailors and officers alike begin to die, unrest simmers amongst the survivors. Crews turn on their officers, individual captains ignore the admiral's orders, and some ships seek any safe harbor. How will the Pillars return the Armada to King Philip and save their own reputations? Plans. Open fire on any who try to abandon the fleet, +1 success if the Duke is active. Rally the priests to give sermons on the divine rights of his most Catholic Majesty, +2 successes if Cardinal is active. Issue orders that any insubordinate crewmen are to be hung immediately, -1 success. Signal the fleet for all ships to make best sail towards Spain and disperse the Armada, +2 successes if the captain is active.
Describe the fleet, yes.
I do not want to look back on this being the last moment of the glorious Spanish fleet. We've made the decisions we've had to make. We've sacrificed what we've had to sacrifice. But the fleet is not made up of ships, it's made up on Spanish sailors. And we've still recovered as many as we can. What we need to do is we need to give freedom to our officers, allow them to leverage the individual speed of their ships, and have them flee back to Spain as fast as they can so we can reestablish the might of the Spanish Navy.
I suppose should be a description of what the fleet looks like there as well, Captain.
Right now, it is ramshackle. It is disheartened. There are people sick. Whatever side of the ship you look out, you just see Spanish sailors either with their heads over the sides or their butts over the sides. It's not a pretty sight for anybody. They're eating anything they can. They're actually having the carpenters grind down some of the wood to mix up sawdust bread, and they're eating anything they possibly can. Thank God there are rats on these ships, or else the fleet would really be in trouble.
All right. Your Grace, I think we have an idea of what the captain is going to be saying to you, but where do the Pillars find you?
So the Duke, once again aboard this frigate, has had to harden up the powder magazine down in the below decks, and has taken a couple very loyal Royal Marines and has posted them at the entrances, because there is talk of mutiny, and the Duke will have none of that. And requires everyone to be patted down before they get in. Super paranoid, and has squirreled away a small barrel of what salted beef is left, and has started doing small rationing to some of the sailors on his ship to keep them loyal.
All right. The Pillars are there. Yes, go ahead.
So your Grace, I see that you've found a way to keep yourself secure. I think that is very, very forward thinking of you. We want to make sure that you're there to speak with the king about what happened with the fleet. He really will rely on you.
These are your sailors.
Yes.
Their insubordination has led us to this point.
Your Grace, I have discussed things with my fellow priests. You may remember Monsignor Delgato here. And we We have decided that in this matter, it is imperative that we give over rights to the secular arm to punish those whose faith is lacking. I suggest that since they have shown that they are not willing to obey the lawful orders of God, of those who God has seen fit to appoint in command of this fleet, that you hang immediately all those who disobey your orders.
Here, 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 here. Is this not the final solution, Captain? The traitors must hang, and they must hang from the gallows high upon the ship. And this will be their lesson. This way we will keep them in line, and we will return this fleet, as you did not want to risk the ships. You did not want to risk the ships.
Your Grace, history will always look back on anyone that chooses a final solution as somebody that truly has a positive idea.
I wholeheartedly agree.
I think right now, if we were to pursue these individuals who would spend a lot of times chasing our Monsignor's tail around the fleet, because right now all of these individual ships that are having problems, they just want to get home. So as long as we free up these individual ships to proceed back onto Spain, I don't think we would have any problems at all.
Discipline must be maintained. That's all I have to say. If you cannot enforce discipline on your own ships, then perhaps the Duke should find some other captain to lead us.
This is my ship. Those ships, your ships. This is my ship. And there's no talk of mutiny on this ship.
It's God's ship. You are just given grace to command it.
Yes. So what is it that...
I think clearly we need to hang all of the insubordinate ones. Let them swing.
How do you intend to get the insubordinate ones?
That I leave to you, Captain.
I'm glad that you're in this room right now, where you'll be very safe. We will let you know when we have arrived in Spain.
Ooh, that sound like you storm out, or?
No, I am very polite. I'm exceedingly polite. I look at the individual Marines and I let the Marines know that the Grace's presence is required in Spain, and that his security is absolute. And what we want to do is want to make sure that he stays safe. So make sure he stays safe here. And then I proceed to turn around.
It's a fair cop.
So.
All right. Unless anyone has anything further to say, I believe we're going to go to bids.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Placing down the last set.
Oh, sorry.
Oops. Sorry.
1, 2, 3. All right. Captain, you are our active pillar. What plan do you choose to initiate?
What I try to do is I try to chase down any mutineers that I possibly can on my own ship. And what I do is I inform the other captains to proceed back to Spain as fast as possible, where they could be investigated and the people could be discovered and they could be punished. Because how else am I going to catch them?
Good show, Captain. Cardinal, the captain has released and dispersed the fleet. What prayer do we hear? What do we see from you as these ships begin to sail forth?
Jesus is the good shepherd, and he shall collect his wayward flock. Those who trust in God, yet have chosen their own path, I pray that Jesus shall find a way for them to return to God's grace. But those who are steadfast and remain in the church and are willing to accept God's punishment Truly, the kingdom of heaven shall be yours.
I cross myself and mutter something about people being out of their flocking minds.
All right. El Duce there. Do you give your die to the captain?
Huh, that's a good one. So, this is backstabbing the game. So we have one conflict to overcome. It's a possibility we'll have two.
Only if God allows.
Only if God allows. God and the RNG of rolling for your party. So, man. Damn you, Captain Salazar. You have cornered us. Oh. No, I won't give my die.
All right, please remove it from your pool. Cardinal, do you and your wisdom give your die?
I think he's got this.
Please remove your die from your pool. Captain, you have 2 die.
Six and a 5.
Cardinal, do you wish to use your power?
That's 2 successes, right?
That
Yep.
is indeed.
No, I like 2 successes. 2 successes is exactly what I wanted him to get.
Fantastic. So,
That's
with
4 total, right? With the plan, that's 4 total.
Oh,
yeah,
you're right.
with the plan.
In that case, I'm going to turn them both to failures, and we're going to
So-
go to 2 successes.
No, we got
That's
no
right.
successes.
No, there we go. No success.
Oh, that's right. What's the number I need to change here? How's this math work? So you have 4, but you have 2 possible failures. So if I change one of them, then you'd have 2, right?
Mhm.
Yep. That's
Yes.
what I do then. I push us to 2 successes. Is what is the
Excellent.
story.
All right. So, Captain, 2 successes. Active pillar either loses 1 die from their pool and describes how the fleet overcomes the conflict, or adds 1 die to their pool and asks another pillar to describe how the fleet endures the conflict.
Okay, if I were to remove mine, then we have 2 conflicts over 1 and 2 pillars remaining. That gives the narrative to me when we get back, so I'm going to do that.
All right. So you remove your die.
So of
and
course that does mean that you are arrested or killed.
we will come to that in just a moment. Yes, but first you will get to describe how the fleet overcomes the conflict.
Mhm.
So, how does this all work out?
Once the captain has given the instructions to basically freeing up the ships, those individual ships fly back at full speed and start to trickle in to the home ports. But what that does is it immediately starts to give information on what happened to the crown from sailors, not from priests, not from political spin doctors, but from sailors. So the first reports are coming through that everything would have been fine as long as they let the military run this operation.
Mm.
And so
And
all
then-
of the ships are coming back, and we sail probably a couple of, maybe a week after the first ship has gotten in, and then that is when we pull back into Spain.
But the question now is, Captain,
Mhm.
are you killed, imprisoned, or disgraced? What removes you from
The
your position?
Inquisition. Here we go.
What happens is he's taken off the ship. There's a quick trial, and the captain is executed. However, all of the fleet and all of the sailors that have gotten back have let everybody really know what happened, and the fact that they quickly and cowardly pinned it on one person that actually was doing the right thing. History will judge him positively.
Hmm.
The Duke is laughed at wherever he goes, and the turnout at Mass just starts to trickle down, while the captain himself is seen as a martyr and one of the last great heroes of true Spanish naval power.
However, the crown is turning this into a propaganda victory, and all the pillars are heroes.
Right. So we go to the 2 conflicts overcome and 1 or fewer pillars, because we've heard of your demise. So remaining pillar are the captain.
No, we have 2 pillars.
We have 2 pillars.
Oh, I'm
or
so
more
sorry.
pillars.
So, Captain, describe how the crown turns this into a victory, and how the crown shows the pillars as heroes.
So, after public sentiment starts to turn on the political story, they realize that they have to quickly salvage what's going on. So what they do is they start to polish the name of the captain. They start to bring him back in. They start to deny whatever happened with this show trial. And because of that, they have to keep the Duke quiet. And they have to make sure that the church is happy, because without military power, the actual monetary power of the church is really what's going to drive Spanish growth for the next couple of centuries. So you can't exactly tick the church off. So these 3 individuals are somehow tarnished and are all put on the same shelf. And the Spanish crown somehow tries to turn its worst loss into a potential positive.
Excellent. And now we will read our afterwards. They go in order of seniority. So first one will be the Duke, the second the Cardinal, and the final the Captain. Greg, if you'll read the first one.
Despite his best attempts, the Duke of Medina Sidonia is remembered as having commanded one of the worst naval disasters in history, whether fairly or not. He continued to serve the crown for decades afterwards with a consistent lack of success on the seas. He's eventually a target of ridicule by Miguel de Cervantes as a typical noble fool.
That's awesome. The Church and the Inquisition remained powerful in Spain for centuries to come. The Inquisition lasted nearly 350 years, officially ending in 1834. Modern estimates are that 150,000 people were prosecuted and 5,000 killed. Countless Jewish and Muslim families were forced to renounce their faith. Rumors persist that the Inquisition still exists to this day.
Despite the skills of these captains, nearly half of the ships, 63, and 2/3 of the men, 18,000, were lost. While Spain remained the most powerful kingdom on earth, the defeat of the Armada is seen as the beginning of its decline. Rampant inflation, mismanagement, and the rise of Britain and other Protestant nations would eventually leave Spain a shadow of its past glory. The reputation of the Spanish Navy would never recover.
And that is Fireships at Midnight. Thank you for playing.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You, Tyler. It's so sad.
If we'd like to take a few minutes to maybe do a little Roses and Thorns to talk over the game, kind of with Thorns, it's things that kind of in the game that could be different. You think things that might have you could see little points that might have could be confusing or problems with it. It also could be things that maybe I did in facilitating. And we can also incorporate a little bit of wishes into that in sort of what maybe would like to have seen, would have liked to have had occur that might have made the experience a little better. And then we'll wrap with much more upbeat roses, where we'll give roses out to our fellow players, things in the game you might have liked, that sort of stuff. So I haven't started with you, Kat, before, so I think I'll start with Thorns with you this time.
The only thorn I have is, you could see I had that moment where I got hung up trying to figure out the math, but I don't think it wasn't a major thing. I just had to follow through. I was driving the whole game for one victory and 2 pillars, because then I could throw you all under the bus. I almost got there.
You
Hadn't been for that meddling captain.
I would say the only thorn I have is because the end states and the solutions are there and you can kind of see it. It kind of drives us in a certain direction, and instead of necessarily trying to do what's best for us as a character, we try to do what's best for us from a potential outcome standpoint. So it's almost if these were either kept away, or there was a variable to them, which means it could be one of a couple of things that would allow a little bit more mystery and drive you a little bit more from a character standpoint. That's the only thorn that I see.
Awesome, thank you. I hear you. Greg, any thorns?
I wish we'd all just leaned into the role playing a little bit more to make it last a little bit longer. And I think I'm not upset with where we ended up at all. I think we had a great time. I certainly did. But yeah, I wish we just spent more time bickering as 3 points of thing. It was a little sad actually when Kat also wanted that failure, so we were both driving for the same thing. It made it a little less interesting for that role playing.
I mean, the Spanish court was fabulously wealthy and infinitely backstabbing. So
yes,
it's very, very true. Thank you, Greg. For me, for thorns, as I play it and as I read it, and I've read it, obviously I've read it 1,000 times and agonized over it. I do see things that I would do different. I have thought about that. It does have there is an element of railroadiness to it, that so much of your path is laid out. I'll come to some roses on a bit of what I'm proud of in it, but there are things that, given hindsight, I think I would do differently. But it's hindsight at this point. So let's move on to something much more positive. I'll start off with roses. Y'all were amazing. It felt like that the rules, everybody caught on to them pretty quickly, and that we could really see where we were moving into, and everybody had just grabbed a hold of those characters, grabbed a hold of their interests, and really did a great job, I think, in our role-playing moments. I loved the descriptions that were coming out of things. The captain's descriptions of the fleet itself, I thought, was marvelous. I liked, Greg, your growing paranoia, the far, just getting so much further out there. Kat, I loved this cardinal. So often the cardinal ends up being a villain when I've run it or had people play it. But I don't think this was a villainous cardinal. This was a devout cardinal. And
I was trying for villainous. I was just totally talking out of the side of my mouth every time.
It was beautifully played. And your quotes and your prayers were lovely. It was really, really nice. And I will say one of the things I am kind of proud of the game is I think it really brings to light how horrible the defeat of the Spanish Armada was. How after that fire ship attack, how inevitable the disaster was. Because as soon as they cut anchor, as soon as they move, their possibilities of invading England are over. There's no way they can turn back. There's no chance they're going to be able to transport the army. It's beaten then. It just takes months for them to realize how bad it is. And so that is one of the my husband often will say that it's edutainment, but he'll say with scorn. But I do think that it shows a little something of what they endured, and that makes me kind of happy. Let's go back to let's see. Well, Greg, we'll go with you. What roses might you have?
Roses, Tyler, for writing this lovely game.
Thank you.
And finally getting to play it with you present. Rose, again, to Kat. this is the same rose I gave you yesterday, I believe, for knowing nautical terms. And I agree. Although you were trying to be the villain, I really enjoyed the cardinal, and your blessings were quite lovely. A rose to you also, Philip. Welcome to the Gauntlet.
Thank you.
I look forward to playing many other games with you. You played a very practical captain who was a perfect foil to my absolutely terrible Duke with his terrible ideas. And I enjoyed that a lot.
Thank you very much.
A
Kat?
definite rose for you, Greg. For I've seen you do the blustering old noble guy now twice. It's definitely a groove for you. It's good. Philip, for always trying to do the right thing, even though this was a situation where that was never going to be the correct answer.
No.
Tyler, thank you for running your own game for us. It was very lovely.
Thank you very much. Philip?
Tyler, thank you for writing this game. It's a real nice snapshot of a truly horrible moment. I'm waiting for the Bastards of Bastogne game that's going to happen, and those other like grindy moments of history. I want to say thanks, Kat, for playing the Cardinal, and Greg for the Duke. I love the fact that you actually did lock him in his little cell amongst the ship, so you proved those horrible rumors to be true. He actually did create his own bunker within the ship. I just thought it was a lot of fun, and for it's one of those games where even though it's a tiny little snippet, it would be fun to replay because things are going to go slightly differently each time.
Cool. Thank you. Because I do like to hope that it has replayability, and I think people coming back into it, there's a little more of the calculation, and it also, I think, frees up folks like where Greg's saying to luxuriate a little in that role play.
Yep.
And bargain a little bit more. That first time around, you're kind of catching on to what it is, but there's bargaining potential in a replay.
Yep.
Yeah, I realized as we did it that if I had actually bid 2 at the end, I would have control at that moment because I am the Duke, and I would have trumped the captain as far as rank. So I was like, "Ooh, yeah, mental note for next time."
And the one I'm working on next that's kind of using this engine is I'm doing the 3 knights who killed Thomas Becket. And it's the ride to the chapel and the ride away is the story being told in it.
Therefore,
Therefore,
thank you. Well, I really appreciate you playing, and I enjoyed beating you, Philip, and I really hope I get to play with you again.
I look forward to it.
Greg, you're one of my favorite souls on earth. I can't wait to play with you anytime. And Kat, we simply don't get to play enough together. I adore you, honey.
Oh, thank you, sweetheart. That's very sweet. We'll try and fix that.
So have a wonderful con, y'all, and I will see y'all soon, I hope.
Yeah, take care.
See you guys.
Good night. Thank you.
Night. Oh, and I'm into the broadcast. So, folks, if you were watching, watch more games.